I remember the way the room was staged for kindness. Candles arranged to look effortless. A playlist that pretended to be spontaneous but had been curated weeks ago. Everyone had agreed, without speaking it aloud, that this year would be easy. I arrived early, as I usually do, carrying a single bag. I keep my gifts practical, things that last. I don't perform generosity well. My brother knows this. His wife pretends not to. Their daughter, 9 years old and rehearsing adulthood, sat cross-legged by the tree, tearing paper with the efficient enthusiasm of someone who has learned that anticipation matters less than reaction. When she reached mine, she didn't look at me first. She opened it. A small, solid thing, useful. Chosen because it solved a problem she'd mentioned once in passing, she tilted her head and said, loudly enough to clear the room, "Dad says you only buy trash." There was a pause, the kind that invites correction. Instead, my sister-in-law laughed. Not a surprised laugh. Not an awkward one. It came out full-bodied, permissive, almost relieved. As if something that had been waiting finally got to stand up. My brother smiled without showing teeth. He looked at his phone. Someone refilled a drink. The playlist kept going. I said nothing. I've learned that silence can be mistaken for consent, but it can also be a ledger. I watched who laughed, who didn't, who pretended to miss it. I watched my niece glance at her mother for approval and receive it instantly. That was the lesson she was meant to learn that night. And she learned it well. The rest of the evening passed with practiced warmth. Compliments traded like currency. Plans made that would never quite materialize. When I left, my sister-in-law hugged me too tightly, as if to prove something to herself. At home, I put the empty bag by the door and didn't turn on the lights right away. I sat in the dark long enough to feel the quiet settle. Anger never arrived. What came instead was inventory. Years ago, when my brother's business was fragile and pride was cheaper than credit, we'd made an arrangement. Temporary, he said. Just until things stabilized. I had leverage then, clean credit, predictable income, a tolerance for risk that came from not needing applause. We set it up efficiently. Joint access. Safeguards. Exit clauses. Over time, the arrangement faded into the background. It became infrastructure, invisible to the people standing on it. That night, I opened my laptop and logged in. I didn't rush. I read each screen the way you read a contract you once trusted and no longer do. The action I took was reversible, documented, and dull. No fireworks. No message attached. I froze the cards. I slept 7:22 a.m. My sister-in-law stood at a checkout counter with a basket of last-minute things: milk, batteries, something festive she'd forgotten. The register chirped its small denial. She tried again. Same result. She laughed then too, but it was thin. A line formed behind her. The cashier did what cashiers do, apologized without meaning it and suggested trying another card. That one failed as well. Sometimes it's the chip, the cashier said, kindly. It wasn't. A manager came over, summoned by that particular pitch of discomfort that suggests money has stopped behaving. He spoke clearly, carefully, as if volume might bruise the moment. Ma'am, the account is temporarily restricted. You'll need to contact your bank. Authority arrived without spectacle. No accusations, no raised voices, just policy calmly applied. My phone rang at 7:41. I let it ring. There were texts, then a voicemail. Clipped and tight, my brother's voice asking if I knew anything. I waited until the house felt fully awake before calling back. What's going on? He asked, skipping pleasantries. I noticed the account was still active. I said. I corrected that. There was silence. Not the kind that invites interruption, the kind that recalculates. You froze our cards. He said finally. Les, you didn't think to. I did think, I said. I thought about how comfortable it's become to use something without acknowledging it. I thought about last night. Another pause. Somewhere behind him, I could hear my sister-in-law talking to someone, too loud, too fast. This is Christmas, he said. So was last night, he exhaled. She's a kid. She repeated what she was taught. The line went quiet again. When he spoke, it was slower. What do you want? The question carried years of assumption. That I wanted leverage for its own sake, that this was about settling a score. I chose my words carefully because this part would last. I want the arrangement ended. I said. Today. I want the access removed, and I want it acknowledged that this was support, not entitlement. And the cards. I'll restore them once that's done. There was movement on his end, papers shuffled, a door closed. When he came back, his voice was steadier. "Okay," he said. "We'll call the bank." The bank representative was efficient. Neutral. She confirmed identities, outlined steps, and explained the restriction without judgment. Authority again, unmistakable and impersonal. By noon, the paperwork was complete. I restored the cards. An apology arrived later by text, not for the words exactly, but for how things came across. It was incomplete. "It always is," I replied politely and left it there. We saw each other again weeks later. The house felt different. Smaller. Somehow. My niece didn't mention the gift, but she used it. My sister-in-law was careful with her laughter, as if testing whether it would echo. Nothing was fixed. Something was adjusted. Power didn't swing dramatically. It settled, quiet, undeniable. I still buy practical gifts, I still arrive early. But I no longer confuse silence with obligation. And when the room arranges itself for kindness without grace, I notice and I choose when to participate.